Hi and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. This week we are talking all about perfection. Now, do you always strive for perfection in your life? Maybe your appearance, your relationships, or your career? Perhaps you are your own worst critic and you are always fault-finding with yourself. Well, what if you could let go of this driving need for perfection and embrace who you truly are and your unique journey? Well, this is what we'll be discussing today. Okay, David, so why is it that we are always striving for perfection or always kind of criticizing ourselves and fault-finding?
This is a really big subject, Alex, and it's one I speak to my clients a lot about. They have this kind of aim, this idea, this goal that they're trying to reach, that if they were perfect, then everyone would like them and love them. Everything would work out just as they wanted it to. They could future-proof themselves. Things would go the way that they want. They would never be what we call CCJ'd, criticised, compared, or been judgmental. And so they've got this aim that they're heading towards. It's like a journey. And I always have this image of the donkey and the carrot. They're always trying to grasp, but they never get there. Yet they do not give in. They continue. My little adage on this is perfection is a perception. Perfection doesn't exist in anything you do. But that part of the mind that I call the inner child doesn't want to let that go.
So is our inner child striving for self-preservation, self-protection? And it believes that if I'm perfect, if everyone likes me, if I do everything right, if I achieve everything that needs to be achieved, then I'll be okay.
It is what I call the utopian or the Disney World kind of idea, that part of our mind. And for those of you new to this teaching, perhaps we should spend just a moment to describe what we mean when we say the inner child. And we're talking about a part of the mind that was kind of frozen in time when your childhood, around the age of 6 to 9 years old. And it's almost though, although you mature and you're grown up and you're highly intelligent, this part of the mind has got these kind of patterns of thinking, and this perfection is one of them. So even though you know intellectually it doesn't make sense, even though you know it's wrong, it's almost like you can't let it go. As one of my clients said something very interesting to me, she says, it's like a drug. It's like, I can't let go of this drug. I've got to keep on trying to get it.
But David, I think that part of our mind, if we call it the inner child, it does kind of make sense to it because we get that drug hit when we do get, say, recognition, or we do make an achievement, we do get that small drug hit. It doesn't last long, and then we're still chasing the next thing, we're still trying to improve the next thing, or we're still comparing ourselves to the next person who we perceive as better as us. But for some reason, that small drug hit seems to be enough to keep driving us on this hamster wheel of self-criticism and striving.
That's right. And I think what's getting even worse in my experience working with clients is the social kind of media, being on social, because that's almost like it's another, you've got the way you look, what car you drive, the way you dress, the size you look, your career. You're always being kind of compared with, or you're always driving. So I think right now this is the worst time that this perfection and moving away and being better and driving yourself. And a lot of my clients will say, well, it's my motivation, keeps me going, but it's a motivation that you can't sustain.
So it's learned behavior in childhood, initially. So we want to be a good boy or a good girl for our parents. So we want to be the best we can be. And we were always watching for that kind of parental or feedback from our parents, guardians, teachers, important adults in our life. And then we carry the belief that we need to be perfect, we need to be better, we need to be the best into adulthood. And that self-doubt, that comparing, that criticizing is then reinforced, as you say, by consumerist society, social media, and also the fact that, nowadays, particularly on social media, where we spend a lot of time consuming stuff, it's false realities are presented of people's lives. So we are not only comparing ourselves, but we're comparing ourselves to other people's illusions that they're presenting. Right. And it's perverse.
Yes,
it's self-harming in a way.
But if you go right to the heart of this, and it goes right to the heart of the Wu Wei Wisdom model, this goes back to understanding that you already have an innate value and worth. You don't have to look outside, externally, to get this validation. And so if you're looking for any kind of validation, just think of that word, the giving of value. That's what validation means. And how can somebody give you what you've already got? And here's where the inner child part of our mind steps in, because they do not believe they already have it. They do not believe it's inherent, it's innate. They believe it has to be earned or given to them. And that, in that sentence, that teaching, that really is the core of this teaching. That's the question to ask yourself. Do you believe you have an innate worth and value? Do you believe that? Or do you believe that worth and value is something that has to be kind of given to you or ordained on you, or somehow you have to earn it? Because if you believe that, then you're on what I call the carousel of despair. It's like a hamster on the wheel, running faster and faster and faster with this forced goal of perfection. When I reach the utopian of perfection, then everyone's going to give me what I want. And this is the ideal of the inner child.
Yeah, and I think if we hold that self-doubt, that then creates the drive to compare, criticize, and be judgmental about other people and ourselves. That's right. Those people who are constantly criticizing and judging others are doing it to themselves.
Absolutely.
Even worse.
Even worse,
Even
Alex.
worse.
This is what I find when I'm working with my fantastic clients. They are their own worst critic. They hate other people CCJing them. Let me repeat what CCJ means. Criticizing, comparing, or being judgmental. They dislike it intensely when somebody else does it to them, but they are the expert. They will do it to other people, and as you say, more destructively, they will do it to themselves. It will never be enough. Even if they reach their goal, they will set another goal. I call it the high jump syndrome. You know, in the Olympics, when people jump over the high jump bar, well, as soon as you get close to jump it, guess what you do? Raise the bar. So you never actually jump it.
And so, David, a lot of people would say, well, the teaching is all about embracing imperfection. But I kind of sense that the term or the connotations of the word imperfection is not a very spiritual, not very Taoist, not a very Wu Wei concept. So what are we aiming for here?
Well, the inner child would say imperfection because the inner child would see it as the emotional pendulum. If you're not perfect, then you go to the opposite. You're imperfect. And really, if you picture in your mind now that pendulum, what we're looking for is the center of that pendulum, what we call Wu Wei, or being in your flow. Why can't you just celebrate your uniqueness. I say to all of my clients, there is no one in the universe like you. You are unique. And if that's not enough for you, I don't know what is, because you can't be better than someone else and you can't be worse than someone else. When you start comparing, that's the inner child now saying, I have to be better than them. I have to make more money than them, thinner than them, happier than them, more successful than them, or then the pendulum swings the other way. They're more successful than me. They're happier than me. They've got a bigger car than me. They're progressing in their career more. They had a better childhood than me. This is what I hear all the time. They had a much happier childhood than me. And so it's always running in this comparison. And this CCJ is another part of the drug. You get almost hooked into this CCJing, that you do to everyone. And CCJ and perfection are brother and sister.
Yeah.
They are linked.
Yeah. I'm just smiling to myself because it's like, nature, animals even, they don't compare, they don't criticize, they don't judge, they just get on and do. They focus on, they just do what they do, and they just thrive and transform and accept. They're not looking around to say, oh, that dog's better than me, or that tree's better than me. And it's the ego that creates these artificial parameters, goals, statuses, hierarchies. But life, the inner child, the ego strives for like a sense of completion and perfection. Once I get this completed, once I reach this point in status, in goal, in achievement, then everything will be okay. That will be enough. But the way of the universe there isn't a completion, and there's a grittiness and a grain to life that the inner child doesn't want to know, because the inner child part of our mind is in this kind of polished Disney world, or it's aiming for like a polished Disney world where we are crowned the prince or princess of the Disneyland. Right. It's
I
so
call it
crazy.
being special.
Yeah.
The inner child wants to be special. So you either accept that there is someone special or somebody can be special, or you accept we're all special. And that really is the trick. And what you were saying about the ego, because we would call the ego the inner child, we would put it as one of the same. So one of the things why the inner child or ego doesn't want to do this, it means it has to be accountable. It has to now take responsibility for itself, for its progression. It can't blame other people. Oh, well, if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for my childhood, if it wasn't, the inner child wants to be able to shift the blame onto something else rather than stand up. And this is the spirituality of this teaching. You already, please listen to this, you already have everything you need or will ever want. It's within you. This is what I would call your Shen, your innate spirituality. This is your birthright. And the moment you look to other people and say, I'm better than them, they're better than me, you are moving away from your journey. You are departing. I think about it like a fork in the road. And we have these choices almost daily. Do we walk our path of truth, honesty, and integrity? And do we respect and honor our Shen, our spirituality? Or do we go down the other path where we're always comparing, criticizing, being judgmental, being our own worst critic? It's much harder to stand up on the stage and to act. It's much easier to sit in the audience and criticize. And the inner child will want to be in the audience, will want to have the gravitas of being famous and being on stage, but not want to be on stage, want to be in the audience and criticize.
Yeah. And so I think there's a misunderstanding that the spiritual way, the authentic way, means not wanting to self-improve. Our authentic self wants us to grow and transform and explore and expand into life and have experiences. So it's not like a mutually exclusive thing where you either want to be perfect and you want to improve, or you don't, you just settle for crumbs. We can still be on an authentic journey of self-improvement without the layering on top of the unrealistic, unhealthy drive for perfection and external validation, and fueled by the self-doubt that we talked about.
Well, the two paths that you identified there, Alex, is the one path is you're going down this path, and this relies on others, external. This relies on what other people think, what the papers are saying, what your social media is saying, the way you should look. This other path, which I would encourage you most strongly to follow, the path of your spirituality, doesn't rely on anyone else, but it does rely on you. This is your journey. This is your potential. This is what you should be responsible for. And again, when the inner child hears this teaching, it will absolutely want to push this away. Because when you are being responsible, it means that other people can criticize you, will criticize you. They will criticize you. You will be criticized. Can I give you one of my best little mantras? Think about this. What other people think of me is none of my business, because you will always be criticized. Now, do you want to be criticized going down this false road where you'll never win, or just accept the criticism? And that's why this word acceptance is so powerful. Just accept that you'll be criticized. Whatever you do, you'll be criticized. Everybody gets criticized. It's a human condition. You just smile and say thank you for your feedback. While they're criticizing you, you can focus on your journey. Let them walk around the carousel of despair, and you plot your course. You follow your journey.
And David, I think if we can move to a place of self-acceptance, but that, we are on our journey, we are still going to develop and grow and not stagnate. But that acceptance of ourselves then transforms into acceptance of other people and acceptance of situations. Again, it's not being a doormat, it's not putting up with inappropriate things, but it's almost like we take 30% of the edge of pressure off on things if we drop the CCJ, the comparing critic. And that frees us up so much to transform and grow and develop, but in a healthy way. So we still move forward, we still progress, we still move towards what we intend to move towards, but we do it in a way that feels good, that's full of green light, feelings of calm, peace, exhilaration, joy, rather than stress, angst, pressure, self-loathing.
And that's why you have to understand that inner child part of your mind, Alex, because the inner child part of your mind has, what I said earlier, this idea of this Disney world, this utopian, where there's no problems. Everything works out the way that they want it to, when they want it to, in the way they want it to. But that's not the reality that we live in. And so you're always going to be chasing this illusion. This is just made up from a child. And if you walk the other path, when you're connected to your Shen, to your truth, to your honesty, to your integrity, those problems still come. They come whichever path you take. There's no path that doesn't give you issues, problems, difficulties in your life. This is an illusion. But the difference, if you walk the spiritual path, when those problems do come, you don't see them as barriers. You see them as stepping stones. You build bridges. You get through it. And that really is the teaching of Wu Wei Wisdom. We're not offering you a life where nothing ever goes wrong. We're saying, this is why we call these videos life lessons. Every situation in life offers you a lesson. Now, do you accept that lesson and learn from that lesson and build a bridge to get through this situation? Or do you go on to an illusion road where you're going round and round thinking, well, if I was perfect, then this problem would never arise. It will still arise. It will still happen. So the choice is yours. Do you walk down this forced path with this illusion that life will suddenly have bunny rabbits jumping in the field and roses growing round the door and everything works out? It's almost like it's like a Disney movie, isn't it, where the path just unfolds in front of you? But that's not the universe, the reality that we live in. Or do you equip yourself, like, as I often use the metaphor, like a sailor, a skilled sailor, sailing across the seas, knowing when to open your sails, knowing when to close down, being able to read the tides and the winds and using the stars, the North Star as your guide. So you may have to move off course occasionally, but you're following what I would call yi, Y-I, your intention and your potential. Don't worry about anyone else's journey. Focus on yours, and you will see the life lesson is perfection is a perception that doesn't exist. But what does exist, what is real, is your spirituality, is who you really are.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And if you'd like to explore the subject some more, please check out the links to other long form videos and some guided meditations I'll put in the show notes for you to help you get to grips with the subject and the issues around CCJ and self-doubt. If you have struggled with this issue, if you've worked on perfectionism and self-criticism, let us know how you've got on. What have you learned? What were the main things that changed your mindset for you? We'd love to hear from you. David works every week with clients all over the world on exactly the sorts of issues we've talked about today. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one consultations via Zoom video call, I will also put a link to those in the show notes as well. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new long-form teachings every Saturday, as well as 2 midweek short snippets of wisdom for you to enjoy. So do subscribe. We look forward to sharing again with you very soon. Bye-bye.